Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to take a journey back in time to unpack the really fascinating story of how the teaching of English has evolved. So let's get right into it. Have you ever wondered why your language class felt so, different from how your parents learned? The answer lies in this century-long journey that started with a way of teaching that treated English less like a living language and more like, an ancient artifact to be dissected. So our story kicks off way back in the 19th century with the very first formal method of teaching. That's right, the first big method wasn't even designed for conversation. It was actually created for studying classical languages like Latin and Greek. The main goal there was to read ancient literature, not to, order a coffee. The whole focus was on reading and writing, treating English like it was some kind of complex code you had to decipher, not a tool for communication. Okay, so picture this. You're in a classroom back then. The teacher spends the entire class explaining super complex grammar rules, but in your native language. You're not actually speaking English, you're just learning about it. Then you get these huge lists of vocabulary words to memorize and sentences to translate word for word. It's all about analysis, not really about interaction at all. So here's the bottom line. This method created a whole generation of learners who knew a ton about English, but couldn't actually use it. I mean, they could break down a sentence from Shakespeare, no problem, but ask for directions on the street, forget about it. In fact, if you've ever had that frustrating feeling where you know all the grammar rules, but you just can't seem to speak fluently, yep, you've just met the ghost of the grammar translation method. Well, this pretty obvious problem sparked a rebellion, a huge shift in thinking about what it actually means to learn a language. And this timeline just perfectly shows the chain reaction that happened next. You'll see, each new method wasn't just created out of thin air. It was a direct response to the problems of the one that came before it. It's a really cool story of trial and error in education. The first big rebellion was the direct method. The whole idea was to copy how we learn our first language, basically through total immersion. So, boom, translation was out. The teacher only spoke English, using pictures, objects, and a lot of gestures to get the meaning across. As you can see, the classroom suddenly became a much more active place. Instead of just sitting there translating, students were in these question and answer sessions and having dialogues about everyday stuff, all in English. Now, this was a great step forward, but man, it demanded some seriously skilled teachers. So the next big shift, which was shaped by world events, took things in a totally different, much more structured direction. Next up, the audiolingual method. This one was actually born out of a real need during World War II for soldiers to learn languages super fast. It was all based on behaviorist psychology, this idea that you could basically drill language habits into people through endless repetition. The goal was automatic, error-free speech, kind of like muscle memory, but for language. So now the classroom was filled with the sound of students just repeating sentences over and over, memorizing whole conversations, and having every single mistake corrected right on the spot. And yeah, they could produce perfect sentences, but they often got stuck when they had to use the language creatively. It's that classic feeling of being able to recite a phrase from a textbook perfectly, but then you freeze the second a real conversation goes off script. And this exact question, right, this huge disconnect between knowing the rules and actually being able to communicate, well, it led to the single biggest revolution in language teaching. So in the 1970s, the goal of learning a language changed forever. The focus shifted from what you know about a language to what you can actually do with it. This was the absolute game changer, the idea of communicative competence. This concept says that being fluent isn't just about making perfect sentences. No, it's about knowing how to use the language the right way in the real world, like how to ask for a favor, how to apologize, or how to disagree politely. And this gave rise to Communicative Language Teaching, or CLT. Now you gotta understand, this isn't just another method on the timeline. This is a whole philosophy that's the foundation for pretty much all modern language teaching. It puts real-world communication at the absolute heart of everything. So the classroom just transformed. Out went those repetitive drills, and in came things like role plays, problem-solving tasks, and authentic materials. Real menus and newspaper articles. The goal wasn't just perfect grammar anymore. It was successful, meaningful conversation. And mistakes? They weren't seen as failures, just a natural part of learning to communicate. CLT's philosophy didn't just kick out the old methods, It blew the doors wide open for a whole bunch of new, specialized approaches and tools for teachers. So, let's just quickly look at a few of the powerful tools in this modern toolkit. And you'll notice they all share one big thing in common. They all build on that core idea of communication first. First, you've got things like task-based learning, where the entire lesson is built around doing a real-world task, like planning a trip together. The language just becomes the tool you need to get the job done. Then you've got content-based instruction, where you're not just learning English, you're learning biology or history in English. In both of these, language is never just some abstract exercise. It's always used for a real purpose. And finally, there's the lexical approach, which is a really fascinating idea. It basically says that we don't speak word by word, but in pre-made chunks of language. I mean, think about it. You don't construct the phrase, "How's it going?" using grammar rules every single time you say it. You just pull it out as one complete unit. So this approach focuses on learning thousands of these useful, ready-made phrases. So where is all this headed? Well, the latest trends are all about using technology and blending the best of everything we've learned so far. The flipped classroom is a perfect example of this. Students get the lecture part at home through videos, which they can watch over and over if they need to. Then, that valuable face-to-face class time is freed up entirely for communication, for projects, and for getting personalized help from the teacher. And this brings us to what might be the most important takeaway from this whole journey. The best teachers today, they don't just stick to one method. They're what we call eclectic. They pick and choose from this entire toolkit, tailoring their approach to the specific lesson and, more importantly, to the specific students right there in front of them. From that silent, rigid translation of the 19th century all the way to today's dynamic, communicative classrooms, the evolution has been absolutely incredible. And as technology and our understanding of the brain keep opening up new doors, one thing's for sure, this journey is far from over. Which leaves us with the big question. What's going to be the next revolutionary tool in the language teacher's toolkit?